Well, they've done it. The St. Louis Blues dominating win in Game 6, 5-1 over the Minnesota Wild. They closed this series out in 6 games. How did Coach Ryan D do about this? What's the recap of the series? What were the keys to St. Louis? And how do I think they're going to do next round? You'll get a tiny preview of that, but hang on because we'll have a full video breakdown later between the Blues and the Avs. So let's go ahead. Let's recap St. Louis, Minnesota. Let's talk about it. So looking down our final list, why do I have St. Louis winning this series? St. Louis checks too many boxes for me. The scoring may matter for Minnesota. The goaltending is a bit of a question for St. Louis, but I think the goaltending is good enough 5-on-5 to get it done. I think the scoring and the defense, well, the defense is bad for St. Louis's team defense. We saw that, but I think the scoring 5-on-5 should be able to counteract Minnesota's scoring. I really do think this is going to come down to a battle of physicality and special teams. And because of that, I'm picking the Blues and I'm picking them in 7. So as you can see there from our playoff prediction video, we talked about the fact that St. Louis has the better power play. We talked about the fact that they have a pretty good roster. We said that the scoring and the 5-on-5 scoring of the Minnesota Wild, although one of the best in the NHL, I've been saying it all year that when you get into the playoffs, if you are scoring at a clip that is unsustainable, it can fall off a cliff at any time, and it did. You need to generate shots towards the net. It's very hard to score at sustainable clips. Unfortunately, as well for the Minnesota Wild, they're bit by the goaltending bug. Marc-Andre Fleury had a few tough games there. Cam Talbot had a few tough games there. And I hate to take a victory lap on you again. I said Talbot is not the answer. He definitely wasn't. I would have definitely stuck with Fleury. Would it have made a difference? Probably not. To be honest, unfortunately, Flower just wasn't the same Flower as he was with the Vegas Golden Knights, Pittsburgh Penguins, or even the Chicago Blackhawks because he played great there. He just had a bad run with St. Louis, and that can happen sometimes moving to a new city, moving to a new team. We've seen examples of it all over the NHL during the trade deadline where you give up a big asset to bring in a big player or a goaltender, and they end up floundering in the new environment on the new team. And floundering is what Flower unfortunately ended up doing. He had a couple really good games in there, though. He had a couple really good saves. We broke them all down. We walked it through. So St. Louis ends up taking it because of their size. They end up taking it because of their veteran presence. They end up taking it because they want it more. Their defensive depth helps them out huge. Even though they were really banged up and injured, the defensemen were able to return in time, help them get out there. The fact that you got Parayko, Krug, Falk, Leddy, Scandella, Bertuzzo, it doesn't end. All 6 of them were able to step up and survive this series. And we also talked about the fact in this series that this was a very good matchup for the St. Louis Blues. Everybody had the Wild favored heavily except for Blues fans. The reason we ended up taking the Blues in this one is special teams matter in the playoffs. You cannot have mediocre special teams. The Blues have one of the best in the NHL. So, of course, they end up in this game putting 2 goals in on special teams. Those are unfortunate calls to take to get scored on a delay of game. You don't mean to do that if you're Zuccarello. And then hooking and holding penalties, high sticking penalties. These are terrible penalties to take in the playoffs. I don't care how chintzy the call is. You have to control your stick. You do not want to take sticking penalties at any point in time, especially in the playoffs. It ends up biting them in the butt from the Vladimir Tarasenko goal. Ryan O'Reilly was quite the revelation and quite the leader for the St. Louis Blues. He's heavy, he's big, he's mean. We talked about this as well. I had a lot of comments on it. Hey, Coach Ryan D, in your playoff breakdown, you called Kaprizov elite, you called Spurgeon elite, then you left it. What about Fiala? And I said, what about Fiala? It's not like he had a bad playoffs, but when I put Ryan O'Reilly in that category and I didn't put Kevin Fiala in the elite category, a lot of people were pissed about it. I'm sorry, I have yet to see it. He had a very good season. He's a point per game guy. But when it comes down to the playoffs, big time players make big time plays and big time games. And that was Ryan O'Reilly. All playoffs for the St. Louis Blues. Vladimir Tarasenko, excellent for the St. Louis Blues. Jordan Kyrou, the young man, chipping in every place he needed to chip in. Obviously, the defensive depth. And we even called out the St. Louis Blues concerns in net. They're able to battle through it. We said, okay, Ville Husso's the guy to go with, but if he ends up faltering, where do you end up going? I'm not confident about the goaltending for St. Louis. Binnington comes in. It's going to be his net going forward. You got to love that. Jordan Binnington for $6 million. Is he back? I think he's back, baby. It's looking good. Binnington took them all the way to a cup. So that's good for St. Louis. They're on the up and up. Hopefully, Torrey Krug can end up returning. at some point in these playoffs because you're definitely going to need them playing the powerhouse stacked Colorado Avalanche. Now, Blues fans, you've been on this channel with us the entire way. If not, you're new here. You think I don't like the Blues, called the Blues Pretenders. I still stand by that. I'm sorry, convincing wins or not, because we talked about the fact that this is the perfect matchup for the St. Louis Blues. I think they were ripe for the pick in the Minnesota Wild. I think they were overachieving as well. I liked the fact that they were scoring at a clip, and then the fact that they kept scoring, because I've been saying this for months. I was like, okay, maybe the Wild are just going to keep scoring like this, and it is going to be what it is going to be, but they end up coming back down to earth. They had 2 strong games where the 5-on-5 goals ended up going in. Those were the 2 games they ended up winning. They stayed out of the box. They dominated the Blues 5-on-5, but then the series flipped back again to heavy hockey on St. Louis. We talked about the fact that St. Louis is heavier. We talked about the fact that the Minnesota Wild are more aggressive, and we said that that aggression for the Wild may end up biting them as they end up going to the box against St. Louis. I had thought Minnesota made the proper coaching change when they went up 2-1 because they stayed out of the box, they played 5-on-5, and they played wild hockey. But unfortunately, that didn't sustain. The 5-on-5 goal scoring didn't sustain. The St. Louis Blues found some 5-on-5 goal scoring, which is excellent. We talk about their Corsi all the time. They're not great at getting shots on the net in mass, and they're not great 5-on-5 with team defense keeping shots away from their net en masse. They're excellent on the power play. They're very good on the penalty kill. They're fast. They're mean. Look, you only have to win 4 games, so an 82-game sample size and stats just tells you what could happen. In a 4-game series, anything can happen because it's small sample size. So the St. Louis Blues take it in 6. We had them in 7. I really liked what I saw from St. Louis here. But remember, Blues fans, you may go all the way to the conference finals. Hell, you may win the Stanley Cup. I've been saying it on this channel for some time. I think the West is weak. Then we get the classic argument. The Minnesota Wild, the St. Louis Blues, the blah, 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 blah. Record against the East is like this. When you play East-West games, this is for everybody. When you play East-West games, both teams have a tendency to put in their backup goalie because you are looking to tie, just steal a point, get out of there, or maybe get a win. It's a totally different dynamic of a game because when you play in your conference or division, it's a 4-point swing. You win in regulation, you get 2 points, you prevent somebody from getting 2 points. You beat an Eastern Conference team, you're not racing them in the playoffs. So it's a totally different mindset. It's a totally different game. Plus you have the distance of travel, which is obviously the largest. You have massive time zone jumps. Usually 3 time zones is very tough to do. And the West is also better at traveling than the East. The East doesn't have that kind of distance between teams like the West does. So the West tends to be better road warriors. At the end of the day, when you're evaluating conferences, it's very hard to do because you only get 2 games. You're not going to get the right conditions to see who's better or who's worse. And if the St. Louis Blues or anyone from the Western Conference, no matter who it is, ends up making it to the Stanley Cup, we're not ignorant enough to think they can't and won't win. They only have to win 4 games. So every year in the NHL, the only time you get a true series between East and West is the Stanley Cup Finals, and that is too small of a sample size to say one division is better than the other. You just really end up using the eye test. So Mr. Stats guy here is telling you just watch the games, take a look at the rosters, make your decision on it. So if you're still set on the West, I'm never going to change your mind, and that's totally okay. But remember, the West was dominant 4 years ago. And I think the West is up and coming as the East ages out. So yes, you got the Leafs, you got the Big Cats, and you got the Rangers over there in the East that are the young new hotness. But you got a whole bunch of teams like the Penguins, the Caps, the Bolts. They are eventually going to age out in the next year or two. And in the West, you have young teams that are climbing up the ranks like crazy. I think of teams like LA and Anaheim. The Pacific Division should theoretically be on the rise, while the Vegas Golden Knights end up in a little bit of a fall. Maybe they'll end up, steady and in the middle. There's a whole bunch of conditions that will happen. The West will take back over again. This is called cycles. It happens, right? When you have the weaker division, you get the better players in the draft pick. When you get the better players, your teams goes up and the world keeps turning. Circle of life, baby. Wild fans, if you're going to stick around and watch the playoffs, we'd love to still have you. If you're peacing out because it's the summer, you got things to do, we totally get it. Thank you for being here. We'll catch you next year or through the summer when we go ahead and start dropping new videos. We're going to be dropping ranking videos. We don't disappear for the summer. The video content goes down. We do 2 videos a week in the summer. A lot of fun stuff, a lot of fantasy stuff, not fantasy hockey stuff, but like who are your top 30 forwards? Let's talk about these systems. Let's talk about that system. So there's a lot of great hockey content coming up through the summer, Wild fans. Enjoy your break. Hopefully you choose to stick around with us, catch us a couple videos over the offseason. We're going to talk about the NHL draft and all the fun stuff. So pay attention for those picks. And St. Louis fans, we're going to cover you and the Colorado Avalanche series. I think that's going to be an absolute barn burner. So if you're new here, why don't you go ahead, smash subscribe, Blues fans. Go down in the comments. When you end up beating the Colorado Avalanche, tell me how crazy I was, how stupid I was for ever doubting the Blues. I love hearing you from there, down there. It makes a lot of sense. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe. It's going to be a great series between you and Colorado. And think about maybe even joining our members page. If you really like what you're seeing and you want to interact with Coach Ryan D, you want to ask some great questions and have direct line of communication to me, the members page is the way to do it. The join button is down below. You can also go ahead and leave us a super thanks if you're so inclined and you're enjoying the content and you feel like, hey, you've earned it. But if not, no big deal. The free stuff, the thumbs up and the subscribe, even the views is all I really need. And the comments, regardless of whether they're positive, negative, or chirpy, no problem, but be careful, we chirp back. So let's go ahead and let's talk about some goals in this game, shall we? Goal number 1, the Colton Parayko-Nick Leddy regroup. We call that a D-to-D pass. It happened back there. Nick Leddy ends up skating it through two Wild players. This is not good. Like, this is what I mean by, like, there's just no jam in the Wilds game today. Wild fans, you know it. Let's not pick on you here. But the fact that they're backing into their zone and they have this much gap, this is what is gap, is not good. This is a 3-on-2, 3-on-3 at worst, because you have a player who's behind my head here. You need to be standing them up at the line. When you have even numbers, you want to stand up. You don't want to give up this kind of gap, because all you're going to do is sit on top of your goalie, back in, and give him a bad angle, and that's exactly what ends up happening here. Leddy is able to exploit that gap that we just talked about, and the gap is still super wide. 2 stick lengths right now. It should be 1 stick length. Somebody needs to step up. You're in a 1-on-5. All Leddy does is end up crossing over to the left. He even gets himself out of the slot. It's a terrible angle. It ends up sneaking past Talbot, and that starts the game, and that is just that's not what you want. The guy made the All-Star game. I've been hard on Talbot all year. I know Wild fans love him. I don't think he's that good. That Blues power play is absolutely deadly. 1:47 left on the power play at this point in time. All you see is a standard 1-3-1, 1 in front of the net, 3 across the middle of the ice, 1 defenseman up high. It is a whole bunch of one-touch passes right back to the point. This is a tough angle change. Take a look at the mass there on Cam Talbot. End up doing a little bit of a stick handle. Look, Talbot's already lost it. He's trying to find the puck. You can see he's trying to reach around. He doesn't realize that that puck has already gone down low. This is why screens are so important on the power play. Goalie can't see it. Goalie can't stop it. Ends up moving down low. They still hold on to it. I would have looked for a shot there. Talbot's eyes weren't looking the right way. That's okay. There's not a great angle. Ryan O'Reilly is in front of the net here. His back is to the play. We have another pass out to the middle. I absolutely hate the laydown. You guys know I hate the laydown. It's just junk. Not a good play by a defenseman because you can't recover. Ryan O'Reilly ends up in the slot. I don't know why they end up leaving him alone. He's the only danger here. There is nothing to protect over here. The lie down just doesn't give you the ability to do it. It ends up sneaking out to O'Reilly, who is going to bury it in this wide open top corner. There's nothing Talbot can do on this. This is not a good kill. I've picked on the Wild's kill all year. This is just, they're not structured that well. They don't do the little things well, and St. Louis's power play is amazing. The Tyler Bozak goal, this guy's still in the league. Look, I love pointing these out. When you make a bad play on a rush like this, if you shovel pucks blindly, this is just such a bad play. This is how the Leafs lost the game again today. Like, when you do not score, you shoot high and wide, or you get a great scoring chance like the Leafs have, and you shoot wide or hit a post. It doesn't matter what the reason is. It ends up turning over and going the other way. So you can see that here. Everybody's confused. Now you just got to end up chipping that puck out. You're going to chip out with speed. This happens routinely all the time. I don't care how many puck bounces or fumbles or lucky bounces you think are going to be here. This is just NHL hockey. Every single time you do this in the offensive zone, it goes the other way and it's automatically a goal. I've said this on many, many videos at this point in time. It is 100% goal every time. All the time. That is just science. Little bit of a play to the front of the net. Talbot makes a good save. Unfortunately, the rebound comes out and Bozak comes in to clean it up. Sorry about all the pauses, starts, and stops. If you ever watch any hockey channels where they just show the clips, those guys get copyright strike, copyright strike, copyright strike. You can't show more than a couple seconds of a clip. Technically, you can't even show the clip. So we go ahead and we use still images to the best of our ability with quick little movements so you can see where the players are going. So it may be frustrating, but it is what you have to do in the world when you are using fair use content, which is content such as the NHL movies or any pieces like this for educational purposes where you're talking over it and using it for different reasons while creating your own content, which is what we do here. So that's really all she wrote for this series. Blues fans, tell me how you felt about the series. Tell me how you felt about the coverage on the series. Wild fans, thank you for being here. Deuces for you. We loved having all of you. We'll catch you in the next round, St. Louis. Stay tuned for our preview between Colorado and St. Louis after we get through the Game 7s.